ABC Listen. Podcasts, radio, news, music and more.
That is the sound of four men in Lycra throwing themselves into a bobsled and hurtling down a mountain at about 150 k's an hour in the freezing cold. The bloke in the front is the pilot. He's the guy who ensures they don't die. In the Australian team, that guy is Cameron Scott. Not that long ago, he was on the cusp of a career in the National Rugby League before a nasty back injury ended that dream. Now he's on the cusp of representing Australia at the Winter Olympic Games, and that is only the cliff notes of this bonkers story. This is Cool Runnings, the Australian edition. I'm Patrick Stack. This is ABC Sport Daily. Cameron Scott is an Australian bobsledder. He joins us from Canada where he's training for the Winter Olympics. First things first, Cam, welcome. How often do you get asked about Disney classic Cool Runnings and the Jamaican bobsled team? And I'm sorry to do it for you off the bat.
No stress, mate. Honestly, it's probably about at least every second time somebody's chatting to me about bobsled. But yeah, more often than not.
The reason, I guess, is that you didn't start in a winter pursuit. You were originally a pretty handy rugby league player, and that was the dream. Can you kind of sum up your career in the 13-man code chasing the NRL dream?
Yeah, look, I signed my first contract with Cronulla when I was 13, so quite a young age, and went through all their junior reps. And yeah, that was the goal, definitely, and that was the focus, was to make an NRL team and sign an NRL contract.
Hockenbach set play back to the fullback. Cameron Scott will score for Canterbury. He will score.
Played with Canterbury through their under-20s as well, and then went down and played some club footy down south in Sydney. And then, yeah, a significant back injury kind of put me out. Needed to do a good 2 or 3 years of rehab. I was told I needed surgery on my back and just kind of decided to go the conservative route. And then, yeah, bobsled came across the table and just took it up with two hands. And, yeah, now we're potentially qualifying for the Winter Olympics in February next year.
It's an absolutely wild story, and we'll get into that sort of twist in just a moment. But when you look at the National Rugby League now and you see, Canterbury up and abouts and sort of contending for premierships, are there guys that you play with coming through who are still kicking around there or in the system?
Yeah, look, there's quite a few still running around through the NRL system there, and quite a few at Cronulla, basing most of my junior rep career through there. So the likes like Blake Brayley and Britton Nakora and Will Kennedy are still running around and playing some great footy. So it's great to see them succeeding so well and doing great things, not just on the field but off the field too.
20 metres out, plays it quickly to Blake Brayley, runs away from Ponga, puts in a kick, Kennedy chasing, Kennedy gets there, try to Cronulla.
How hard was it for you to swallow then when you see those guys obviously have made it all the way through? When you got that news that, you had such a nasty back injury that your career was effectively finished on that front, how initially, how tough was that?
Oh, look, prior to bobsled coming into the equation, it was definitely something that I don't think I've actually really sat back and thought about. It was kind of like a day-by-day situation when the news of the back came through. So, yeah, I guess, to be fair, I don't think I've really thought about it, because once I started to come good, the bobsled card came across the table and I just thought, like, this is my next thing, this is where I'm at. And, going and watching those boys play and watching NRL, it definitely kind of sparks the interest again. But it's been great to have such an application in such a niche sport in Australia to keep me focused and, striving for my best in my sporting endeavours still.
Can you help us understand the depth and context of that injury? Like, what was actually involved?
Oh, look, so it started off as a disc bulge in my back, and that slowly deteriorated further and further to the point where I didn't have any disc in my back. So I went to a neurosurgeon, and he told me I needed a spinal fusion, and, it's going to take you 8 to 12 weeks to rehab from that before we even introduce anything. At that point in time, I sat down with my strength and conditioning coach and just said, look, mate, is there anything we can do? And he said, yeah, let's, if you want to try it, let's give like a good, 6 months worth of rehab a go. And if not, go under the knife and see what happens. But I stuck to my guns and trusted in his processes and, coming out the other side. And I can only credit it to now as to where I'm at athletically for sure.
Because it was during this rehabilitation your story took an enormous twist. Tell us about Hayden Smith and how a chance meeting with him really changed everything.
Yeah, look, so I went to school with Hayden's sister, so he was a couple of grades above me, and I was good friends with his sister, and we just happened to be training at the same gym, and Hayden was going, building up to his Olympic season in bobsled. And, I got to see him develop as an athlete and see how strong and powerful and fast he was. And, he went off to the games and then came back and, he kind of tapped me on the shoulder and was like, "Hey, mate, you'd be good at this." And I just kind of laughed it off and just said, "Yeah, okay, mate. I'm walking around here with my 20 kilo dumbbells and, you're throwing around weight like no tomorrow." So it was quite funny. He just was quite persistent and kind of sparked my interest very slowly over a period of about 2-ish kind of years. And to his credit, he stuck to his guns, and mate, I punched my ticket to head over to Whistler and do my first pilot camp, and mate, the rest is history.
Talk us through that first camp, because I'm sure there must have been moments where you were thinking, I am so far out of my depth. But there was moments where you're like, do you know what? I'm actually really quite good at this.
Oh, look, when you do your first track walk, so that's where you literally put on some ice walkers. You're walking on hard ice and you walk down the track, and you're standing in these corners that are between 5 and 10 meters tall, and your coach is telling you where you're going to be up in the sled up on the wall, and you're just thinking, okay. Yeah, the first time I jumped in, I was definitely absolutely thought I was out of my depth.
We do occasionally get these reminders, don't we, of how simple it isn't to get 4 fast, sprinting, big-built men into these tiny sleds as they rush downhill on ice.
After that, kind of the first couple of runs, it's like anything new, right? Like you kind of get the interest and spark that interest, and then you start doing it a couple more times, and it became an obsession to after the first couple of times, not to hit that wall on the left there and, not bounce around here on the right. So definitely out of my depth to start with, but, it's just become ingrained in me just to, my perfectionist, my OCD coming out a little bit there is like, I just want to perfect it, and it's become quite the obsession.
And there's 2-man and 4-man bobsled. Each sort of member has a different role. What's your role in those two pursuits in terms of getting the thing down the mountain?
Yeah. So as the names say, 2-man, there's 2 of us in there, and then 4-man, there's 4 of us. So I'm the common denominator, being the pilot at the front. We all push to start with, so we're moving the sled from as a dead weight as it is. The 2-man weighs a minimum 170 kilos, and the 4-man weighs a minimum 220 kilos. We're moving that from 0 kilometres an hour to about 30 to 40 k's an hour within 5 seconds. So got some pretty big, powerful boys in the back. Their position is known as the brakeman. They push as fast as possible, and we all jump in, and then it's my job to get us from the top to the bottom with as little bumps and bruises as possible.
I don't imagine a sport like this, particularly in Australia, is especially lucrative. I mean, when you're not pushing steel down the ice at 150 k's an hour, how do you make ends meet?
So I work full-time as a nurse unit manager at Calgary Hospital, St George Hospital in Calgary in Sydney there for 6 months of the year. Every cent that I earn through that work, I'm putting straight towards bobsled. So the financial burden's definitely there, and, putting a lot of life on hold to be able to chase an Olympic dreams are definitely at the forefront of my reality at the moment. So
aside from the wage that you're earning, running a nursing unit, what other ways can you essentially help your dream come true from a financial point of view? As I said before, that every cent that I make as a nurse and as a nurse unit manager goes towards bobsled. And the Australian Olympic Committee has been fortunate enough to partner with the Australian Sports Foundation this year, which is a platform that allows any donation over $2 to be 100% tax deductible. So that's incredibly important for people like myself and my team, whereby we're entirely self-funded. So any donation that's made not only benefits us to, keep that Olympic dream alive and keep us overseas and, a roof over our heads, but, obviously provides a tax deduction to the donator as well. So a platform like that, it's been incredibly beneficial to small and niche sport athletes like myself and my team. It's mid-October right now, Cam. When is crunch time if you and the boys want to qualify for the Milan Cortina Olympic dream? Yeah, so go time is mid to late November. So we've got 7 2-man races and 7 4-man races between November and January 18th to put our best foot forward and accumulate points depending on where we come in those races. And then 18th of January is the day that we find out whether or not we've done our best and hopefully punch that ticket off to Milano Cortina. It's a heck of a story. We're hoping to ride it all the way to Italy with you, Cam. Thanks so much for your time. Appreciate it. No, thanks for having me on, mate. Headlines. The Ashes is where cricket banter goes up a notch. It comes in many forms. Glenn McGrath has his go-to prediction of Australia winning 5-0. David Warner had his version this week when he said this.
Baz Baller or the Australian way? What style wins out this Ashes? Who's under most pressure?
The Australian way, because we're playing for the Ashes and they're playing for a moral victory.
And now the bowler who really owned Warner, Stuart Broad, has returned serve.
They've got question marks over their team and question marks over their captain, the fitness. You wouldn't be outlandish in thinking, well, it's actually not an opinion, it's a fact. It's probably the worst Australian team since 2010, when England last won, and it's the best English team since 2010. So those things match up to the fact it's going to be a brilliant Ashes series. You know, Australia have been so consistent.
Worst in 15 years. Big. How much further can we go with these confected gags? We're going to find out. The NRL has outlined its position on Rebel Rugby Comp R360. Bans are the order of the day. If you're a player who negotiates, signs, enters into a letter of intent, playing contract, or any other form of agreement, whether verbal or written, 10-year ban from the NRL or ARLC sanctioned comps. Agents representing a player on the above will also get a decade on the sidelines. But how is this nice little loophole? The ARLC retains discretion to review or lift a ban. So while you might get a 10-year sidelining for even thinking about the numbers 3, 6, 0, the powers that be might change their mind if it suits them. Yeah, not sure about all of that. Yesterday we asked Andy Harper if the Socceroos were booming or if they might be a bubble. Well, the USA has just broken the Australians' 11-game unbeaten run under manager Tony Popovich. Jordan Boss actually got the Socceroos off to a cracking start inside 20 minutes, but it was downhill from there.
Geordie Boss into the area. Boss still going. It's a great run and it's a goal. Geordie Boss.
At time of publish, we are in the final throes of the AFL trade period. We're going down to the wire. It's the final countdown. There's wheeling, there's dealing. Is it junk time or is it glory time? All of the cliches. To find out how your team actually ended up, check out the ABC Sport website to get the final picture of the landscape. I'm Patrick Stack. This is ABC Sport Daily, produced by Jason Ford. Thanks to the International Bobsleigh and Skeleton Federation for the Love of Cricket podcast, Paramount Plus, and NRL.com for the extra audio used in this episode.
Discover more great ABC podcasts, live radio, and exclusives on the ABC Listen app.